Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Embrace Live. Thanks for joining us in tonight. You know, it's great. We've had a bit of a break for a number of weeks, actually. Things like life got in the way, you know, family dues, and one of them was my wife's birthday, so I didn't dare do anything on that particular day. That makes it sound really bad, as if she's a dragon. No, it was just obviously important to spend time with my wife and family, of course, and a few kind of family events got in the way. And then, you know, we had a few kind of technical difficulties the other week with one of the particular guests. We're going to try and get them back on and rearrange another day. And then last week, you know, unfortunately, the guest that we had planned, got contracted COVID and wasn't well enough. So sadly, that was the case then. But I'm pleased to say they're on the mend, and I've already got the new date in for them already, and they've agreed to do that. So we're really looking forward to having them with us and so on. So welcome, like I say, to Embrace Live. If you're not familiar with Embrace Live, this was started actually over a year ago now, because on the 5th of May, when we didn't have a show, on the 5th of May, we actually celebrated our first birthday. Would you believe? It started last year in lockdown as we were, and it was just a way that we could connect as a church with other people, obviously those who attend Embrace, and actually those who are beyond it. And really, it's kind of evolved into an opportunity in the middle of the week just to kind of give us hopefully some encouragement on Hump Day, as they call it, each Wednesday, just to really celebrate what God is doing, because God is on the move. Obviously what's happening in His church across Teesside, across the northeast, across the UK and beyond. And I'm so encouraged. I don't know about you, and hopefully you are encouraged to hear people's stories and meet different people who are living out their relationships with Jesus and what they're called to be in their communities, in their workplaces, in their families, of course. And how God is impacting their lives and the lives of those around them. So it's great that we're able to do that. I'm really excited to say that we've got the wonderful Jonny Munby is going to join us tonight from Middlesbrough Community Church. I've known Jonny a while now, so it'll be good to kind of catch up with him. And he's sat, I can see on the monitor, we've got him positioned and primed and ready. And we've been chatting a bit before we came on air tonight. So we're looking forward to kind of catching up with him and hearing his story and how he's living out his faith in different ways, and what does that mean for him, and obviously his involvement in places like Middlesbrough Community Church and beyond. So really looking forward to that. We'll head over to see Jonny just quickly in a moment, just so he can give us a quick wave and just give him time to prepare his hair and makeup and things like that. Those kind of, he's laughing, that's okay. But as always, we really do want to make these sessions interactive. And, great if you're joining us live tonight. Thanks for doing that, because that's the best experience, to be honest, because what we want to do is we want you to comment and question, and Jonny and I will make time in the show to kind of respond to your questions and so on. But just let me see on my other monitor here, I can see that the wonderful friend Philip Cartmell's joined us, and already Philip's flown with a banter asking if tonight's kind of theme tune is going to be Johnny Be Good. That's about the highest level of, quality joking and banter from Mr. Cartmell, I can see. I'm sure he can do better than that and so on. But there we go. Great that Mike Connolly's joined us online. I can see Alan Fraser as well, and Tony Fraser, thank you. It's great to have you with us. Listen, why don't you just take this opportunity to do a couple of things for us and really help spread the word? Why don't you share this link to, your Facebook friends and family? Just, quickly do a quick share and things like that on your social media channels. And also, it'd be really helpful as well, because we are going out via live on Facebook, obviously, and that's where we mainly stream to. But we're also trying to develop our YouTube audience. So, what I want you to do is just, if you can, head over to YouTube and do this. Go to the Embrace Church Darlington. Now, we would love that address. But YouTube doesn't quite work like that, because it only lets you do that if you have a certain amount of subscribers. Okay, and we've kind of got double things kind of going on here. I don't quite know what we've had with a technical issue. There we go. Let me just get rid of this second window. There we go. Let's try that again. We'll go with the live logo, and then we'll try that subscribe again and see what happens. That's better. Okay, so, head over, do the usual kind of things in terms of subscribe, like the video and things like that. All the previous episodes that we've done over the past year, okay, are all available, obviously, on our Facebook page as a church, but also over at YouTube as well. So it'd be great if you can help us develop our kind of audience on there as well. So take a moment to kind of subscribe, but also take a moment to share with your friends and family online and so on. Okay, so I talked a lot already. You know, I just wanted to kind of very quickly just kind of show you a bit of who's coming up. A number of these guests that we've had already, which is great. And, you know, if you haven't checked out, you know, the episodes featuring people like the wonderful Barry and Vicky Thompson there at the bottom right of your image from Darlington Baptist Church, doing wonderful things in Darlington, then, you know, go back and have a look at one of those episodes. The wonderful Pete Glasby, top right, you know, is a good friend of ours. And just next to him is John O'Connor, Tony Grange above there as well, doing wonderful things with Connect events. We've had John Searle just underneath them, and you know, again, all of these names, all of these people are there. Some of these are still to come up, you know. So we've got the wonderful Mike Beaumont coming on. I want to get in David Stretton Downs is at the top right, top left, sorry, and many others actually. You know, again, like I said, I've been kind of boasting. You know, before we had the bit of a break, I was kind of saying that we, you know, have somebody booked in now, you know, right until the end of July, certainly, and I'm into August, and I'm kind of, you know, grabbing people for September as well. So that's going to continue. We do have a little bit of a break. I am planning a little bit of a break in August, you know, obviously for a bit of, you know, family holiday and things like that, really. And plus, lots of us are very busy anyway. But, you know, please check out, you know, the kind of previous episodes if you can. And stay tuned, you know, set your reminders for, you know, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. All right. And it'd be great if you can join us live if you can. Live, you know, because then you get the opportunity to interact. But if you're catching up, then that's great that you've joined and taken that effort as well. It's great that you've been, you know, taking that moment to kind of watch as well. All right. And share these with your friends and family. I said we'd head over to Jonny just to see how he's doing. Jonny, we're going to come to you now just so you can get your hair prepped and things. Here we go. How are you doing, mate? Are you okay?
Great, thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's great to be with you tonight.
That's all right. Are you just adjusting your laptop screen there? Is that what you're doing so we can get the full, you know, kind of benefit of you on camera? I always love it. I always love it when people, you know, kind of position themselves with the bookshelves full of books behind them. Now, you know, I've already had a few of my guests kind of just say, well, I haven't read them all. So, but a learned fellow like yourself, I'm guessing that you've read all of those. Come on. Be honest.
Well, I think it's mainly they're like Harry Potter and some kids' books on the bottom. So yeah.
Yeah. Is that your kind of level? Is that what you're after?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, yeah.
So already we've got in Philip Cartmore just kind of saying hello, buddy, and things like that. You know, I'll put some of these comments on screen and things, and certainly people are showing you the love and saying hello already. And thanks to whoever it was. So that I'm guessing it might be Mike Connolly or other members of the admin team at Embrace Church for sharing the YouTube channel as well. So, Jonny, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to kind of pop off and we'll just do a little kind of leaders intro, and then we'll come back to you and we'll just have that kind of chat, if that's all right. Are you happy?
Great, yeah. Fine.
Good stuff. All right, mate. Thank you. We'll see you in a little bit. So, you know, like I say, please, you know, subscribe. And actually, I mean, Mike's jumping on already. Mike Connolly's posting a comment. Calvin and Hobbes? ? I must admit, Mike, I don't even know who Calvin and Hobbes are. Is that a solicitor's firm? That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not sure. If you want to explain, that'd be great. Maybe I'm just the one who's, you know, kind of not showing what, you know, too much education. I don't know, but there we go. Or even quality television. So what we're going to do is, you know, I'm going to play this leaders video, and then, like I said, we're going to get into, you know, just having a chat with Jonny, and, you know, like I said, we'll just hear his story and, you know, his kind of experiences and how he's living out his faith, which would be great. But like I say, please share the stream with your friends, and then, you know, feel free to, you know, interact and post some kind of comments for Jonny and I to kind of respond to. So let's have that leaders intro. Here we go, and then we'll get over to Jonny. Here we go. And here we are. There we go. So here we go. You can see we've got Jonny here with obviously in full glory. I'm still waiting for Mike Connolly to explain who Calvin and Hobbes are. Do you know who they are, Jonny? Am I just? Is it just me or?
No idea.
No. I have to say, Mike is a bit random at times. I don't know if do you know Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you can back me up by saying he's a little bit random. He likes to go off on a bit of a tangent, but that's all right. I'm going to give him a chance to kind of explain himself, but we'll just go with that. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's good. I mean, obviously, it's great to kind of. I really appreciate you kind of coming on, really, and this opportunity to kind of hear a bit more about who you are and your kind of story and so on. That little kind of leaders intro video there has some big key kind of words on there, and I know that you're part of the leadership, aren't you, as part of Middlesbrough. Right, okay, Middlesbrough Community Church, aren't you? I'm a little bit distracted because, again, Mike's come up with here. Let me just put it on screen so you can see the comment as well. Finally, Mike has resolved that burning issue that we all had, and comic book characters. I've read a lot of comic in my times, or graphic novels if you're an adult. Graphic novels, comics. But I'm still not entirely sure which one. So we need some more information on there. So you're part of the Middlesbrough Community Church leadership team as well, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, part of the core leadership team at Middlesbrough Community Church. Yeah.
So before we get to that, then it would be great. Why don't I shut up and just give you an opportunity just to kind of tell us a little bit about who you are? Because for those of people who haven't met you before, just put yourself into kind of context. Family. Obviously, what do you do for a living? That kind of stuff, really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'm Jonny. I live in Middlesbrough in Linthorpe. Married to Beth, and we've got two fantastic kids. Ina, who is 8, and Isaiah, who is 5. And we go to Middlesbrough Community Church. I've been here about 13, 14 years. Beth grew up in the church. We're both part of the core leadership team there, which is fantastic group of people. We're just not paid, just volunteers, one of many people on that team, which is great.
Yeah.
I work at Teesside Uni.
Right.
So I'm a lecturer there. I mainly teach accounting. So, I mean, we'll get back a bit into the story if you like, but I used to work as an accountant in the NHS, and now I teach accounting. And I also do some stuff with international student recruitment, international partnerships.
Right.
So we get to do a bit of traveling, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And also kind of get involved in the accounting and finance courses at the uni, which is exciting.
Fantastic. Have you just said, I'm sorry, but without kind of making general, so it's accounting is exciting. Is that what you want to establish right from the off?
I teach a module to all of the business management students, and they have to do this one module on accounting. There's like 150 of them, and I say, this is going to be the best module you have this year. And they're like, no way, not at all. And by the end, most of them say, it has been the best module this year.
Do they have to say that because otherwise they won't pass, or those kind of things? I'm sure. Obviously, we're all different. I'm sure. You can find excitement in accounting and things like that. We're all different. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. We all, like we say, there we go. So I mean, obviously, it's great. Obviously, just to hear that. I've met Beth a few times, those kind of things. And it's great. Actually, I hadn't realised you were both on the leadership team as well. So that's great. It'd be good to hear your kind of experiences and how that kind of happened. But before we get there, it would be great just to hear your story, Jonny, if you don't mind, of how you kind of came to the point where you've dedicated your life. You accepted Jesus as your saviour, and what I always ask the same kind of 3 questions really. What was life like before? What was kind of happening around that point? Then you actually made that decision, and then what's life been like since that point? And then we can chatted about, as well as your kind of work. You work with you're volunteering within Middlesbrough Community Church, MCC, for short, and things, and other things as well. Because I know that you're active beyond that church and so on, and and I always make this point, and it would be remiss of me unless I do it. If I don't do it, in fact, to say that there's only one church, isn't it? That's God's church with a capital C, and I just kind of refer to them as many different expressions or flavours, really. And it's great that as Embrace Church, we're part of a church family called Taking Ground, which I know that MCC is a part of as well with a number of other churches across the northern kind of region of the UK. So it's great to kind of celebrate what God is doing across the region, really. So go on, tell us a bit about your story then. I do have a habit of talking a lot. I apologise.
No, that's great. So I grew up in Barnsley in South Yorkshire.
Did you?
I kind of lost my accent.
I was going to
but
say the
yeah,
accent gives it
I
away.
used to talk with the proper these and das. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
going downtown and stuff. So that was South Yorkshire, and I grew up in Barnsley. And my dad's was a Church of England vicar.
right.
He's now retired. Finding it hard to retire. Actually, he keeps getting more involved in different churches. But
Yeah,
anyway, so I grew up, in a house where God was just part of life. We not only did we go to church, but it was like everyday conversations just about
right.
God and prayer and the Bible, and like we'd go to a lot of like Christian events or like camps and things. So I had like experiences from a young age of like seeing people really excited for God, seeing things like like healings and people who took God really seriously, and my parents as well,
Yeah,
and seeing that work out not just in church but also my mum and dad were really big on just helping people really. So we'd often have like asylum seekers
right.
coming in the house for meals, and even homeless people. We had a homeless guy living in the shed for 6 months,
Wow.
and it was just like that kind of model of like when you live for God, then you want to make a difference. Really, you want to
Yeah,
help people. You want to bring the love of God into the hardest parts of society.
yeah,
So that was kind of modeled to me, as well as my parents being really passionate as well about God. Not to say it was all easy, but
yeah.
definitely saw the
It's
reality of
amazing.
it.
Yeah,
But then so did have experiences of God growing up. Definitely, kind of believed in God from a young age. But then I guess when it got to particularly secondary school, really, I think what your friends are doing, peer pressure. I had
yeah,
some older friends as well who kind of were starting to get into like drinking and parties and things. Even when I was like 13 years old, I started going to some parties, drinking on the streets and things, like
yeah,
lying to my parents. Had my rebellion early, shall we say.
yeah, yeah,
Just wanted to do what I wanted.
yeah,
Was like, don't want to think about all that God stuff. Just want to do what my friends are doing, have fun, you know. Just yeah. So that was that for maybe about a year or so. Anyway, so when I was 14, I remember my granny died, my mum's mum, and just thought, at the funeral, like, where's she gone and where would I go?
mm,
Was one of my thoughts. If I
yeah,
died right now, am I sure I believe in God, but I don't know if I've said yes to Him. I don't know if I've accepted Christ as my Savior. I'm definitely not following Him.
yeah,
So I really don't know where that leaves me. And not only that, I think I was just realizing that the kind of lies and the just following after the ways of the world, if you like, just wasn't really making me happy. And I kind of saw the trajectory and thought, actually, life could be more than this.
yeah,
And I need to make a decision. I need to make a brave decision because it's not going to be an easy decision. And so that summer, I was 14, we went to a camp, a Christian camp. We went to every year. This one's called Faith Camp. It was
right.
first night of the camp, so in the kind of youth meeting, I guess. Just kind of in that first worship time, I just said yes to God. I just said, God, I'm really sorry for doing my own thing, for rejecting you, for like just literally doing whatever I wanted, and I want to follow you and I want to know you, and like, please forgive me.
Yeah,
And I just had this overwhelming just encounter really with God, felt His love, felt this presence, felt this warmth, like this light. I really felt Him say, yeah, I forgive you, like you're chosen, you're my son. Really encountered the Father, heart of God, really, and His call, really, just to say, you're going to do big things for me, really. You're gonna show people what I'm like. It's what I
yeah.
felt God was saying, like a kind of like a fire starter, I guess. It's a way you could say it. Um, and yeah, just
Come on,
filled me
love it,
with
love it.
love and filled me with courage.
Yeah,
And I kind of went back and told my friends I wasn't going out drinking anymore. Started a Christian union at the school. Started trying to like get my youth group a bit more excited about God. We started doing more prayer meetings and more youth services and stuff. And
yeah,
it was an exciting time. The youth group grew. Saw a few people saved, and kind of continued like that. not saying I got it all right. I definitely had ups and
Yeah.
downs. I definitely made mistakes along the way. Particularly, teenage angst, relationships, all those kind of things. But,
So were you about 14, that kind of 14, 15, kind of, whatever those
yeah,
kind of age?
14 I was when I said yeah to
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
basically.
I mean, I mean, I'm no doubt. I would have thought that you got a little bit of stick being a vicar's son and all of that kind of stuff anyway. And then,
Hmm. I did, yeah. My dad
understandably,
used to come into my primary school like in fancy dress,
did he?
ponchos, puppet shows. And my dad, I don't know if you know my dad, he's got a long beard. He looks a bit like Father Christmas. So I got a lot of stick off people who when he used to come in. And then
Yeah,
the other thing was, because my dad was a vicar in the town, and actually God told my dad to change his name from Philip to David, which is like another story. But
wow.
he did that when I was about 11, and it ended up in the local papers as well. So then, obviously at school as well, it was like, your dad, God told your dad to change his name. I was
Yeah.
like, yep.
Yeah. So they had plenty of material and ammunition to, make your life a bit challenging at times, then, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. But I mean, like you say, I mean, it's like you say, incredibly brave, like you described there, going back and saying, right, I've made a decision to follow Jesus. I know Jesus. I'm not going to go out drinking anymore and book the trend kind of stuff. And like you said, a lot of that kind of peer pressure, and then to start a Christian union and really acting and living that out. It's exciting stuff and takes a lot, doesn't it? Particularly at that kind of age to stand up. So amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
and I remembered like there'd been so many years when I'd gone to these camps and said a yes to God, and then come back two
Yeah,
months later and literally been like, not say anything, do whatever my friends did. But this
yeah,
year was definitely different. It was like, this is the marker of my life. Like my identity now
yeah,
is a follower of Christ, and that's how people are going to know me. Do you know what I mean? It was like,
yeah.
yeah, became the most important thing.
Amazing,
Definitely.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's amazing because obviously, generally around, the teenage years, there is a lot of kind of exploring, isn't there? You kind of think, what is my identity? Where do I fit? What, like I say, so like you said, to describe that as a marker. This is who I am. This is my identity. I'm found in Christ, and so on, live that out. So that was kind of secondary school. What about after that then? Where did you what happened after that?
Yeah, so I went to college in Huddersfield. That was great. And then got into uni at York to do politics, philosophy, and economics.
Wow.
I kind of chose that course because basically I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to understand the world and change the world. So I thought, well, politics, philosophy, and economics, that sounds like a good combination.
Yeah.
And around about that time as well, literally just before I went to uni. Rewind a little bit. So my wife, Beth, we both used to go to this youth camp called Harvest that you know very well, Dave.
Ah, well,
And so Beth's youth group from Middlesbrough used to go, and my
right.
youth group from Barnsley used to go. So we probably met when I was about 14, maybe, got to know each other, but didn't really stay in massive contact or anything. But when I was 18, so the year that I went to uni, just before I went, me and Beth just spent a bit more time together over Harvest, got chatting,
Yeah.
what's your favourite Bible verse type conversations,
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, of
and
course.
then MySpace Messenger, So yeah, we were just talking, and then about 10 days before I went to uni, Beth actually rang me up and asked me out, which obviously, I should have had the
Really?
guts to do. She had the guts to do, yeah.
Go
So
on.
she asked me out, and then and I said yeah. So that was it. So then we were kind of long distance, but York's not very far from Middlesbrough, is it? So
No, not really.
we saw each other quite a lot on the train, which was cool. So yeah, started going out with Beth just before uni. Went to York Uni. Had a great time at York. Really enjoyed the course. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed, the
yeah,
Christian Union there and getting to know people. And then after uni, applied for a few jobs, but the job that I ended up getting, which is the one I wanted, was the NHS graduate scheme, which was like a finance and accounting training scheme in the NHS.
yeah.
And on my application, I wrote on the bottom, if possible, can I be placed in Middlesbrough because my fiance is working in Middlesbrough. And when they rang me up to offer me the job, they were like, "Congratulations, we'd love to offer you the job, and yes, you can be placed in Middlesbrough. No one else requested that."
No one else wants to come to Middlesbrough. There we go. I love it.
So I did most of my training kind of at James Cook Hospital, trained to be an
Right.
accountant. in the NHS and worked there for a number of years, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing. Look, thanks for mentioning Harvest. I'm always really humbled to hear how many people's, Harvest features in so many people's stories. For those of you who maybe not familiar with Harvest was a youth festival, youth event that used to happen over Bank Holiday weekend, generally in August. In the northeast, generally it was at Bishop Auckland. And then kind of moved into the Teesside region for a while as well, and so on. It was amazing, kind of a camp to be involved with. I had some involvement in the kind of running that and serving in it as well, and it's amazing how many people met each other, like you say, and established relationships, friendships, and then marriage, etc. A lot of people kind of mention that. It's great. So it's really humbling, and it's amazing to see each year. Such amazing times where God was moving and impacting people's lives and just transforming them, really, and like you say, the encounters. So it's a really kind of special memories, really. So it's humbling and it's great to hear, those kind of things. So
yeah, those times are really, like you said, really special, aren't they? Those encounter times, not only the encounter times, the worship times and the speakers, but also the chance to meet other Christians your age. Because when you grow up in a youth group of like 8 people in a small church in Barnsley, and then you come and there's like a couple of 4,000 people or whatever. It's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing. Cool. So obviously then you eventually married Beth, and you got accountancy
in the borough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually my brother's gone the other way. He lives in Barnsley now. Big Borough fan, but I always remind him he was born in Luton. I was born in Borough, so it's all right. But it's an opportunity just to wind up your brother. I take that at any opportunity. You love that me mentioning it on here as well. So how did you was Beth then part of MCC at this point, or?
Yeah. So Beth grew up in MCC. She did take a gap year in Oxford, where she did like a kind of Bible college gap year with Salt and Light, which is the network of churches we were part of, King's Bible College in Oxford. So she did that gap year when I was in the second year of uni, and then she came back to Middlesbrough and started working for Connections. So it started off being careers guidance, and then it ended up being more like family work with young people.
Right.
So she worked with young people. Yeah. Basically, kind of underpaid social worker, you might say, trying to prevent things escalating up to social services. Essentially, is what she used to do in the council.
Yeah. So I mean, you said then it was about 13, 14 years or something like that. You've been involved, I think, in MCC. And obviously now
I moved to Middlesbrough in 2008.
Right.
I graduated, I moved to Middlesbrough, and I got married all in the same month.
In the same month? Wow.
Yeah.
You don't mess about, do you?
No.
You said you're a man of action. It sounds like like you did say something like, I want to learn about the world or and change the world. You sound like a guy who doesn't mess about. Let's get on with this. That's good. That's good. Let's jump across here, because you can always rely on Alan Fraser for some. He's a guy of questions. He loves to question people, and we did say we want to make this kind of interactive. So I'm going to put Alan's just asking this question. I'm going to put it on screen. Hopefully you can see that. So he says, given that you were brought up in the church, was there ever a time when you turned totally away from God? Would you say? I know you had your challenges.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that time when I was early teenage years, 13. It was probably a period of maybe just over a year when I was literally like, don't want anything to do with you, God, or at least I'm going to pretend. Maybe I'll pretend in church that I'm a Christian, but when it comes to school, when it comes to friends, I'm just literally going to do my own thing. And I don't think I stopped believing in God, but I think I definitely tried to forget about him.
Yeah. Wasn't certainly, it wasn't taking priority at that stage, then, eh?
No, definitely.
I think we can all relate to that at some point in certain passages of our lives. And again, it tends to be quite often at the secondary kind of stage, doesn't it? When during secondary school and so on. So let's jump into MCC then. Obviously, you said quite clearly, and we know this, great people, and obviously fantastic church and so on. And it's great to kind of hear what's happening through the church community and so on. And you said that you're part of the core leadership team. What does that mean? What does that mean then? Both you and Beth, aren't you, part of the core leadership team?
Yeah. So I mean, so we run at the minute. Well, we have elders. We have 4 elders. But the main kind of decision-making team that when we meet twice a month is called the core leadership team, and
Okay.
that's currently, let me get this right, 11 of us, men
Wow.
and women in that core leadership team. So yeah, most of us get together twice a month, and we'll, as a leadership team does, talk about vision, strategy,
Yeah.
pastoral, kind of where are we going, what's the key themes, and practical stuff like, what we're doing at Christmas and things like that.
Yeah. So quite a large team, isn't it? Obviously, like you say, about
Yeah, it's
11 and
good
stuff.
though.
I bet your meetings last
It's
forever.
honestly the best. The best. I mean, I've been in kind of, I guess, eldership or leadership for how long is it now? Probably maybe about 9 years.
Right.
And I think this is like the best setup and the best team that I've been part of.
Yeah.
And just in terms of heart and passion and interaction and
Yeah.
feels good. I mean, I've enjoyed my whole time really in eldership and in leadership teams, but yeah, it's working well. Miles Banner, he's the kind of senior pastor,
Yeah.
but we definitely run it as kind of like a what do you call it? Participatory leadership model, if that makes sense.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
we're all involved in those discussions,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I ran that little kind of leadership video as an intro kind of stuff. And, leadership really just boils down to influence. We're all leaders in some way, aren't we? Because we have influence other people. Now, that can be positive, and we know that certainly that's times when it, maybe not so positive. And so, how did you find then, how did you get into that role? Did somebody just come up to you one day and say, right, did you show some willingness in terms of, because of course you want to change the world, which is great, you're a go-getter, certainly if you do all of those things in a month, so, obviously, did somebody just come up and say, I see this in you, or would you like this opportunity, or would you stack those chairs and those kind of things, or whatever?
I guess rewind a bit. Ever since that time when I was 14, I really felt like the call of God to influence, I guess, to see people encouraged, to see people growing in God, to see people saved, and to see people, to preach as well and to lead worship. So since I'd been about 14 or 15, I'd been trying my hand at preaching, trying my hand at worship leading,
Yeah.
organising, prayer meetings. So it was kind of like learn as you go from a young age, really, with leadership. And the same through uni, got on the kind of committee with the Christian Union at the uni. When at the church that I was at uni, did like a preaching course that the pastor did, like a learn to preach course. And I also asked the pastor to mentor me as well while I was at uni. Obviously, I grew up with a dad who was a vicar as well, so I asked him all kinds of questions, theological questions. So kind of theology and leadership and influence and preaching was kind of in my blood, you might say, but I also went after it as well and tried to develop it as well. And then obviously joined Middlesbrough Community Church in 2008, and then I think maybe about 3 or 4 years later, I'd been leading different things. I think I'd been leading a life group, which is like a house group. Then I think I was in charge. Me and Beth were kind of put in charge of coordinating the life group, the house groups for a while. And I guess the more you do and the more people see that you can be trusted, the more you can be trusted with, isn't it? Be trusted with a little, you can be trusted with a lot. So there was 3 of us who were asked to kind of sit with the eldership team, almost to test the waters for a while. That was myself, Chris Pearson, and Miles Banner.
Yeah.
And so we were invited in really to the team, and on a trial run, I guess. And then eventually we were prayed into I can't remember the exact year.
Yeah.
I think it was about 2012-ish, maybe.
Yeah. I love that.
Maybe
Like you say,
2013, important.
I love what you say there about, you know, you can be if you can be trusted with a little, you can be trusted with a lot, you know, and like you say, it's you know, taking those opportunities and you know, I think we're all called, aren't we, to be, you know, active in some ways and serve certainly with the gifts that, you know, God's given us, and like you said, it was in your blood. You've certainly had a lot of people invest, you know, in you, and I think, you know, in terms of, I'm interested to hear you from, obviously, you talked about the guy who mentoring you and the kind of how to preach kind of course and stuff like that, which is great because, you know, many people, you know, public speaking is you know, an absolute nightmare, isn't it? So, you know, how do you kind of, what kind of things, can you remember what kind of things you covered in that? Just, you know, to, you know, or, you know, and from that, your experiences really, if somebody's kind of watching this and thinking, I'd love to give this a go, but, you know, it fills me with dread. And I think it's really important, like you said, to have that mentor alongside you as well, to kind of do the hand holding and encouragement. And then, you know, the development points, you know, kind of give you the opportunity to grow, you know, and to challenge yourself. What kind of, you know, what kind of tips were given to you, and then what would you say about that then? You know, if you were passing on your experience and wisdom in this area. Go on, I'm ready to make notes
In
at this
preaching,
point.
in public speaking.
Yeah, let's go with preaching
Yeah,
first, but I do want to come back to
yeah,
your you know, involvement in worship leading as well, because it'd be great to kind
yeah,
of, you know, tap into your experience of that as well, if that's all right.
yeah. These are very much related, but there's two big parts of preaching. There's the theology part,
Yeah,
and then there's the delivery part. And some people are really good at the theology, but not so great at the delivery, and vice versa,
yeah,
actually. And I think both are really important. So I think the theology part, you know, get as much input as you can, training as you can, you know, taking ground of a fantastic theology part-time school called School of Applied
I'm
Theology,
glad you
which
mentioned that because I
been
was
on and
certainly
I
going
teach on.
to. And actually, next week is Mike Beaumont who runs the school, doesn't he? So, you know, there's a
Yeah,
great link and stuff like that. But
there's a
certainly,
big plug.
we'll post more about that outside and maybe talk a bit
Yeah,
more
so
about
get
it.
as much input as you can, you know, from
Yeah,
places that you trust, people that you trust. You can find a lot of rubbish online, but, you know, yeah, some good kind of orthodox, you know, good input there. Read a lot of books.
yeah,
Make sure you do your research. And I say when people are preparing preachers, you know, always over prepare. Like read loads of things. You know, read from different traditions. Don't just stick with, I don't know, kind of reformed kind of American white males,
yeah,
you know, read from different traditions and read good commentaries. You know, get the context. Find out, you know, when you're looking at a passage in Scripture, it's all about context and what did it mean then, and you know, you've got the
yeah,
kind of, well, we could talk for a long time about this, but the kind of exegesis and the hermeneutics. You know,
yeah,
how does it link to the rest of Scripture? How did it apply then? How does it apply today? So that the preparation's important, the reading's important,
yeah,
but I also think bringing it to delivery, it's also really important that you know what you want people to leave with and the impact that you want to have on people's lives. Whenever I have a preach, I'm always thinking, how am I going to end this? How are people going to respond? And what is it going to mean on the Monday morning?
yeah,
And that has got to be the goal, hasn't it? The change in people's lives.
yeah,
It's not about me doing the best exposition of a passage and people saying, "Well done, aren't you a good teacher?" It's people having an encounter with God and being changed. That's the goal, really.
yeah,
So the impact and the change has got to be. And I think being passionate about that and praying about that and praying for the change. I think that was one of the things on that course. He said, you know, what impact and outcome do you want to have from this talk? And you need to aim towards that,
yeah,
and you need to
absolutely.
pray for that. And in terms of delivery, there's a few things we could say. Smiling and eye contact is important. Not
Absolutely.
droning on with a boring voice is important. Um, you know, having a presentation that's not just loads of text. I like to use a lot of visuals, like images, because I think
Yeah,
people find it hard to listen and read at the same time.
yeah,
So if you do use text, minimal text, lots of images. When you're delivering, remove distractions. You know, find out what works best for you with notes. I like kind of like bullet point notes. I print them. Some people do it on an iPad, but
yeah,
some people like to read a script. There's no right or wrong way of that.
Yeah.
But I think the key things are prepare well, get your theology sorted out, and know what you want people to leave with, and have the passion to communicate that.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
you
you
know,
find that,
I think,
Johnny? Do you find that because obviously you said you're a lecturer as well, at Teesside
mm,
Uni, and
mm,
apologies for my dissing of accountancy earlier on. I didn't mean that. I'm just jumping on the stereo, the typical kind of bandwagon. But do you find that you bring your professional experiences into your preaching as well? It's just
yeah, I guess they both they've interacted.
yeah,
So the more that I've preached as I've got older, the more that I realised that I enjoy teaching, and then that's one of the reasons that I moved from doing accounting to teaching accounting,
yeah,
because I do really enjoy teaching.
yeah,
And when I joined the uni, I got to do like a teaching qualification, which was really good, and I really enjoyed it. But it kind of like mainly just reinforced the things that I knew about. The important things are the learning outcomes,
yeah,
and everything else has to build towards the learning
yeah,
outcomes. And you need to be aware of what people are bringing into the room in terms of their prior knowledge, if you
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and and making what you're bringing able to be understood and to build on what they know, in order so they can have light bulb moments.
yeah. Brilliant.
Um, so those are some of the things that are definitely common, whether I'm teaching profit and loss and balance sheet, or teaching about whether it's Isaiah 61, which is my favourite passage. We might
Yeah,
come to that in a bit, but
yeah, yeah. Or whether you are doing a guest session at the School of Applied Theology course that you
Oh
mentioned,
yes,
where obviously we're talking about Trinity, and you mentioned a great book. I must admit, I haven't got as far as reading it yet. So, but certainly I remember at that time, like I often do, right? That's got to be a book. Like you say, you got to be well read,
yeah,
and to add that to the list of books I've got to read, which are piling up. I
brilliant.
must admit, I must get through them.
Yeah,
But
that
obviously,
that Trinity topic
yeah,
kept, especially through lockdown, I kept coming back. It's one of those. It's much more complex and deep
yeah,
than I ever thought. The more that I read and prepared for that session, the
yeah,
more I realised I didn't actually know about it.
yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Like you say, we are. I am going to post the link to the our promotional video to the theology course, and because even though it says School of Applied Theology, and that can fill people with dread, it's amazing. I really recommend doing it. It's a 3-year course. You can have a break. It explains it all in there. I'm doing year 3, although we skipped year 2 and we're going back to year 2 because of the way it was organised and COVID and things like that, which is absolutely messing with my OCD. I'm finding that very difficult not to have my folder above me with a 2 on it just yet, but I'll have a complete set next year. But well worth doing it. Like I said, I'll post some links as well. And I'll prep the video for next week's episode as well. Like I said, because I'm really pleased that Mike's able to come and join us as well, and he's an amazing guy. So that's really helpful. Like I said, I think that's really helpful in terms of challenging ourselves. And do that if you're watching this thinking, I really fancy giving preaching a go. Obviously have a word with, whoever it is in your church and talk to them about that in that design. Again, nobody's just going to throw you straight up on the, in front of a microphone in front of a group of people, because, like Johnny's already mentioned, and this is certainly something that we do in Embrace, and my experiences in previous churches as well, is to that mentoring, again, that support that comes beforehand, support during delivery, whatever that looks like, and then afterwards as well, because we all want to make sure that we are growing, and even the seasoned preacher still benefits from input, and we can learn. Every opportunity, isn't it? Every day is a learning day, absolutely.
Yeah,
But I totally agree with what you're saying, because I come from a teaching background as well. I'm a teacher, and totally, when you start talking about learning outcomes and things like that, we can start getting to education speak and so on, and all of that. But totally, absolutely agree. What about? I'm looking at the time already, and as always, the time seems to speed up. I always say this during Embrace Live, and we normally keep it to an hour, so we are going to wrap up at 9 o'clock. We aim to kind of do that there, really. And I'm sure there's so much more that we could get into, Johnny. But you mentioned as well that as well as preaching, that you lead worship as well. I know you're a very talented guy. And we have kind of been in the same worship teams, and if there's an instrument that he's playing, then Jonny Munby can play it. You're one of those talented people. I'm a little bit more limited. But how did you get into the kind of musical aspects of worship lead? Because obviously we know that worship's a lifestyle, and you've talked about that, and but certainly as something that we can do as a community, as a congregational thing, as a group of people meeting, is singing and declaring, obviously our, the praise of Jesus and our love for him through song, And so, how did you get into the music side of things and those kind of opportunities? And we'll get to the tips.
Well, it was a musical house growing up. There was a piano, a couple of guitars. Both mum and dad played guitar, and my mum played piano, and they were just around. So I just picked things up. I did have piano lessons when I was younger. That was the first thing I tried to learn.
Yeah.
Didn't keep going for ages, but I had a couple of years on piano. Then I picked up the trumpet in school, and I did trumpet for a few years and got up to like some of the grades in trumpet. There was in like a brass band and a concert band and stuff through school, and Barnsley Brass Band, Barnsley Metropolitan Brass Band. There was
a big shout out.
And then guitar, and then bass, and then drums. My good friend played drums, so I learned from him.
Yeah.
I guess once you've done a bit of theory and you've learned a couple of instruments, other things come easier, especially when you're younger, I guess. So, and then, like I said, from that age of like that 14, when I gave my life to Christ, it was just natural, really, to start learning worship songs, playing worship songs, having a go at leading. I had a fantastic youth leader who was also like the worship. He wasn't like the worship leader in church, but we had these youth services, and he would lead the worship there.
Yeah.
And he, at that period in my life, became my mentor as well. So I would go to him, share my struggles, and he'd teach me guitar, and that was just a great. He was like really encouraging. Peter Sterling, if you're listening. Yeah. He was a great guy, and he really encouraging. So he just taught me loads of stuff about playing and leading. So he'd get me shadowing him, basically, learning how he does it. And just from then on, just like learning to play, particularly guitar, leading worship. I think there's something very, like music is a gift, isn't it? And I know some people get it's more than others, but I know a lot of people experience not just their emotions, but I think experience God spiritually in a special way during music and during worship, musical worship, we might say.
Yeah.
So I've always loved that. I've always loved the way we can encounter God and be focused on God and have those real life-changing revelation moments with God during worship times. And so, that's carried right through, really.
Yeah. So how did you get into, again, within MCC, did somebody just kind of spot that in you, or did you kind of, say, I'd like to do a bit of that? Did you just kind of turn up one day with your trumpet under one arm and your guitar in the other, and, those kind of things, or tinkle on the ivories? Or...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was leading worship in my youth group in Barnsley. I ended up leading worship on a rota when I was at uni in church.
Yeah.
I mean, so Beth's dad, Terry Young, was part of the eldership team at MCC when I joined.
Yeah.
And he just knew that I played and led worship. So it was only a matter of time if I was like...
There's no escape. We'll have him.
Yeah.
You're on.
To the worship practice kind of thing.
Yeah. Love it.
But as with anything, it's getting to know the people to trust you, getting to know the systems, doing a few practices, getting to know how you plug in and how the monitors work and all those kind of technical things.
Well, let's tap into your experience again there, because you've given us some great advice for those people who maybe are thinking about preaching and so on. But what about maybe some people, and I won't just say younger people, but, again, who sat there and who have a bit, again, some musical experience and are thinking, I'd love to get involved in, or a musical and being in a team, but actually think I'd really like to take that step and have a go at leading worship. What kind of... I'm always interested in, because we have done kind of worship leader series, if you want to call it that. So I'm talking to other people about this, and just to kind of tap into about what's their process when they're preparing to kind of lead worship on a particular date or whatever, what's their purpose? I like it. I like Helen Malbon, from TVC that we know, called it brewing, I think she called it, that kind of process for her in preparation to
I like that term. Yeah,
yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a few things. I mean, if you've never done it before and you'd really like to, I think practice loads at home and watch YouTube clips of worship songs and download the chords off like guitar, whatever it's called, tabs.com, and just get to know chord progressions and the kind of chord sequences that at the end of the day most songs use the same 4 chords, and you just stick a capo on, don't you? So once you've got those positions, it's not too hard. But then I think as well, just practicing getting those songs to flow into each other. How do you get not just musically, but also how does the theology or the imagery of those songs work? I preached a couple of weeks ago on worship, and I said for me, imagination is really important in worship, and I often picture, whether I'm in the band or in the congregation, that there's a bit of a journey in a worship time, and it's whether we're going from the outer court to the inner court, or whether we're going up the mountain, or whether we're just kind of right on into like I don't know, the new heavens and the new earth with all the angels and all the thousands upon thousands of saints from every tribe, tongue. So I have like these images, and often when I'm picking songs, I'll be thinking, all right, so what's the talk about? What's the topics, and how do I link that in? And what's the journey? Do we start with a kind of praise and declaration? And then do we have one about like God's majesty and power? And then do we have one about, what's my response? So that kind of journey. And then, but also very technical things like what key are these songs in? Are some of them in the same key? Is that going to help the transitions? I actually change the key on most songs. So my friend Chris Pearson, he's got quite a high, he can sing a lot higher than me, and he can pretty much do most songs as they're written by the artist.
All right.
Apart from Phil Wickham, he's just crazy. No one can sing like Phil Wickham. But I just can't sing that high. And I think a lot of women struggle with this as well. The keys are not good for women or most congregations. I take everything, I just transpose it all down, usually about 2 tones. About 4 semitones, and that just helps my voice, because I tend to lose my voice quite a lot when I strain it, and I think it actually helps the congregation, in my opinion, when things aren't quite high.
Absolutely.
So I do shift a lot around with the chords, and I won't be scared to think, well, I'm doing a few songs in A, and that one's normally in a G, but would it work in an A just on the one off because it's in an A set? Maybe it would. I'll do that as well.
Yeah, and like you said, that flow, that kind of transitions are important, and that journey, like you say, with the outer to inner court and up the mountain top and those kind of things, it's important, isn't it? Absolutely. It's an interest. I agree with you what you're saying about the keys, and you might have a register like Chris, by the sounds of things, that can hit the singing in the key of Tomlin, but mere mortals like myself as well. I'm thinking, well, actually, that's great that you can sing in that register, but like you say, when it's at the expense of, and this is nothing against Tomlin or Phil Wickham, who are amazing people, but if you can sing that high, but you're the only one who can hit that kind of notes and register, other people just become like a passive observers then, don't they? And that's not, when you're leading worship, that's not what it's about. Like you say, it's you're facilitating. People who are coming from variety of experiences, trying to point them towards God, and rather than like, absolutely, you get out of the way, don't you, as a worship leader? That's the whole point. You need to kind of do that.
And I think at the end of the day, for me, it's about the congregation encountering God. And it can never be about us doing the best performance or having even the best PA or the best lights. That stuff all helps, but as I said, with my underlying thing, I guess, for all leadership is it can never be about my ego, my reputation. If the goal is God's glory and people's transformation, that you've got to be humble in leadership, haven't you? And it's not about your reputation, you being good. it's about service. And so for me, worship
Absolutely.
leading is about people meeting God and being changed. Preaching is about people meeting God and being changed. If it ever becomes about me and my reputation, and I've missed the point,
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. I just want to put this on screen, just a comment from Mike that we know well. It just seemed to be missing the end of that little. I'll have to readjust that at some point. But you can see there, obviously, just a kind of big shout out and encouragement, really, from Mike, who's, just saying the likes of yourself and Chris Pearson. Is that? I don't know the Rich E. Let me put that back on there.
Rich Edmondson,
Yeah, yeah. You're obviously going from strength to strength, and again, just a appreciation there, really, from Mike and so on. I'm sure there's many others like that, which is great. Great advice again, Jonny. I really appreciate that, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think, like you say, if we're not willing as leaders, because I operate in some leadership roles as well. If we're not willing to, put the chairs out and be there first and do whatever, then we shouldn't be in leadership. It's like you say. And a good friend of mine, Mark Miller, who's the vicar over at Stockton Parish Church, talks about protecting the platform and, in the sense that it's a sacred kind of place, but we're just that kind of making sure that people come with the right heart and right attitude about, servanthood and things like that, rather than egotistical kind of. And that's easy to do, isn't it? Sometimes particularly if you're a musician, obviously, particularly that's what the world encourages and so on. But slightly different. I do agree with you as well. Just to kind of say that about. You have to be very careful about this, the way they say this about excellence, because excellence has been abused in some ways. But let's just say it's more about kind of playing skillfully. And I think, whilst you do need a certain competency level and so on, because we don't want you to get up there and embarrass yourself. We don't want you to be a distraction to others and things like that. So we want, again, like preaching, there's the mentoring. It's kind of what happens beforehand. Totally agree. Play skillfully. Practice, just to make that this kind of distinction. Practice for me is something you do personally, as you're worshipping yourself, not yourself, but your own personal times, worshipping, developing your craft kind of stuff, and then that's a practice. Rehearsing is when you come together as a group and just kind of do the the organisational side of things, and then there's lots we could get into that.
Of course.
I am conscious of the time. We're almost before. I mean, because we've mentioned worship leading, I've love this little kind of put you on the spot moment, which I'm going to do to you, so why should you get away with it? Is your top 3 worship bangers. So if you think Desert Island kind of disc kind of stuff, discs even, your top 3 worship bangers, you're kind of all time, which, I would love you. I'm just going to amble it on a little bit just to give you some thinking time, which I can see you're deep in thought already, because it is a amazingly tough question. But what would be your, if you like, top 3 worship tunes, worship songs of all time that actually, for me, it kind of represents certain points in my life, certain things like, one of them for me would be Jesus We Enthrone You, which is a great song. Why? We were talking about that on Sunday, actually, at the Embrace. We were talking about, we're doing a why series and why baptism, so for me, in Stockton Baptist Tabernacle many years ago, the old building, when I got baptised there, we got to choose a song and that for me always remains a really kind of special song, and I like to kind of play that one every now and again in worship when I'm leading worship sets as well, so have I spoken long enough to give you an idea?
Yeah.
Go on then.
So it might be, my first one might be Be Thou My Vision. I love a good hymn.
Yeah.
And I've always loved Be Thou My Vision. Just kind of captures that kind of, it's all about you. This is where I'm going.
So do you like it like a traditional kind of organ kind of approach, or do you like what was his name, Wayne Drain? Do you like the Celtic kind of theme, the drums and so
Yeah, no, like you can do it in like a rock, like a 4/4 rock.
Oh,
it works well.
Come on.
Yeah. What else? I really like that, what is it called? You Are Worthy of It All, is it called? All the Saints and Angels.
Yeah, Worthy of It All.
Every time I lead with that one, just go somewhere else.
Amazing tune, yeah.
And do you know what? I think my third one is going to be, what is it called? Is it called Build Your Kingdom Here, or Come Set Your Rule and Reign by Ren Collective?
Yeah.
Because even though it's really hard to play and really hard to do, the words just capture my life's key message and story, which is that, God's ways and God's kingdom is wanting to change the world,
Yeah.
and we can be part of that.
Yeah.
And that means the church being the hands and feet of God and serving the poor and the community, and seeing the deprived communities absolutely transformed. And it's not all about church, it's about changing the world and seeing people set free.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
Isaiah 61 is my favorite passage.
Yeah.
So it all links in with that. So
yeah. You have, I mean, that's you can tell you're a preacher, because you've just wrapped that session up, this section completely gone full circle, because that's what you said about when you were choosing what you wanted to study, about, learning about the world and impacting the world. You said that it was modeled from your family, from your parents, and doing that from a youngest kind of age and stuff. And then, that at the age of 14, having that moment at the camp. Was it Faith Camp, did you say? I can't remember the name. Whichever camp it was. Just kind of making that commitment and saying, there's my identity. I'm, again, being on fire. And from that, starting Christian Union, going obviously to uni, meeting Beth, Wonderful Harvest and everything. I do listen, see, this is why, I do take it in. And, clearly from then, Jonny, obviously for the, relatively short amount of time that I've known you, kind of met you over the years and things like that. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. It's just actually just having a chat, getting to know you in it a little bit more, because often when we've met, we've been doing the music thing and things like that. So it's been great to kind of hear a little bit more and just spend a bit more time
what's
with
the
you.
right chords today? What are we doing? Where do I plug in? Kind of situation.
Jonny, wait, what's this bit? And yeah, absolutely. So it's been great just to have a bit more time. Really, I can see. Let's put these couple of these on in just to finish, because it's just after 9. So obviously, Mike Connolly, you're hitting the right spot for Mike tonight. I'm still trying reeling on about I'll put this on these comic book characters. I'm gonna have to do a bit of research afterwards. But he does like a bit of Wren Collective, good stuff. Even though like I say, it's a Build Your Kingdom is a challenging song, particularly to keep in time with. You need a good drummer for that one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Paul here has posted a question, which I'm sorry, I'm just missing that off just a little bit. Let's see. It's just gone a bit full screen, really. I'll have to kind of resize
It's
that.
more of a statement, isn't it, than a question?
Yeah.
I guess.
Using whatever gifts we have to facilitate the message from God, and great worship is enriching the congregation with this message. Bring everyone closer to God and giving him the glory through his message. Absolutely, Paul. Yeah, thank you for posting that. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Jonny, I've really enjoyed it, mate. Has it been all right? Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been great. It's good to have these conversations, isn't it? Remind you what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And the humdrum of life sometimes.
Yeah. And, honestly, mate, you've done that really well. Again, a lot of, like I say, I played that leader kind of intro, and I think you're a great guy. You really certainly take a lot of those kind of titles that are in there, and just bless you for all that you're doing. Obviously not just within MCC, and let me just say that I've collared Miles as well. Miles is going to do one day. I can't remember when that is, but he's coming on this show as well. You mentioned the mighty Terry Young. He's featured previously, so but just keep on going. What you're doing, it's great. I always follow as best I can on your social channels about what MCC's up to and stuff like that. And it's just great to be able to see. And I was chatting with Miles actually at the last Saturday at the theology course as well. Just great to hear a bit about what the church is doing and where you're going to, and like you say, those priorities. And I'm glad to say that even though it's a massive team, it seems to me, but that's a good thing. You've got, you said you're inspired by a really good team at the minute in terms of the leadership and where you're kind of going to. I said at the minute, that makes it sound as if it's a temporary thing. I didn't mean that. But you know what I mean. So you're amazing. Thank you very much for kind of coming on tonight.
Thanks
really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
We'll again soon.
Yeah, I look forward to kind of, I'm really privileged that I've kind of taken on a role with Burn 24/7 Teesside and helping to kind of coordinate that. So I'll be coming back to you and saying, right, Jonny, we need your input. We need you to lead some sets and things like that. Be prepared.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I love a good burn, so we'll be there. We'll do that soon, yeah.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. I'll kind of mention more about that to people as we kind of, do a few more kind of things as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of just wrap things up now, Jonny. But if you want to stay on the line, I'll just kind of chat to you afterwards and we'll see, we'll just kind of wrap things up there. Is that all right? Thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks a lot. So, again, just a huge thank you to Jonny for giving up his time tonight. Really, really enjoyed it. And, please, like I said earlier, right at the top of the show, set your reminders. We're back now after a bit of a break. We're going to keep on going. And, so Wednesdays at 8 till 9 o'clock generally. And feel free to please head over. Let me just do this one more time. Head over to YouTube and search for Embrace Church Darlington. Just subscribe and do the usual kind of like things there, because we'd love to be able to kind of use this address that we need a certain amount of subscribers for. But of course, you can, follow us on Facebook, as a church, and we can head over to our website as well if you want to do that as well. All right. But it's been great. Thank you very much. Like I say, if I just do this one more time, we've got wonderful people booked in. Like we've got, people ready to feature till, or like I say, into the beginning of August, and then I'm heading into September, so things. All right. So have a really good rest of the evening. Take care. See you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.